I love cooking and I love teaching people how to cook. Good food is so important, not just for our health, but for our temperament, and it doesn't need to be complicated. For this series, I've created a set of menus which I hope you will try, either as individual dishes or as a complete and balanced meal. We're so lucky to have some of the best raw ingredients in the world. Let's make the most of them. Soups are a great way to start a meal, and because they are so versatile, it's possible to pair them thoughtfully with the main course that follows. The butternut squash soup I'm going to show you would work perfectly in an unadorned state for lunch, but with the addition of a herb oil and crisp pumpkin seeds, the soup is transformed into something sophisticated and worthy of a dinner party. This is a simple recipe, but I think it shows off the lovely flavour and silky consistency of the squash. I'm using butternut squash for this soup, but it could just as easily be any of the pumpkin family. I'm going to start by getting my onions and garlic on sweating. So I have a little butter, which will pop on just to melt there in my pan. I'll take it off the heat for a moment. A little hot. That could just as easily be olive oil. And I'm going to slice my onion and crush the garlic. So slice those like that. Just make sure your butter is completely melted before you put in the onions. I've got some peeled garlic here, so just press it like that. And then a little coarse chop. This is lovely sweet smelling garlic. Pop that in there. And I'm not even going to stir them at this stage because it's on a really, really low heat. So when you're preparing squash, just you need to be a little bit careful because they've got a very slippy, slidey, shiny, hard skin. Particularly the later into the season, the harder that skin becomes. I always start like that. Good heavy chopping board, chopping knife, and pretty much cutting away from yourself all of the time. So cut off the tough skin. Just cut down like that. And squash is the most wonderful thing. Roasting, baking, thinly slicing and putting on a barbecue or the grill. It's a fabulous vegetable. So that's that. A few of these and just run away. So a pinch of salt. At this stage, a nice twist of pepper. Generous seasoning like that. Turn the vegetables. Then, because we're trying to create a sweaty, steamy atmosphere in here, a little piece of greaseproof paper or parchment or a butter wrapper for that matter, in on top, like that. And then the steam will build up in the saucepan, and that makes a phenomenal difference to the taste of the soup at the end. Because you could say, why don't you just chuck everything in and simmer it until the vegetables are soft and pureed? Wouldn't that be lovely? It would. It's better this way. This sets the flavour. Okay, so for the herb oil, I have got some finely chopped chilli and a little grated lemon zest, which I'm going to put in a moment, and some garlic. And then I need some olive oil and chopped herbs. So I've got some chives, a nice fine chop. So lovely chives like that. A little bit of flat parsley. I like the oil to be really lovely and green. Plenty of freshness of flavour and freshness of appearance. A stronger herb next, sage. Generally speaking, the one that we use is this sort of silver sage here. Lovely. And then finally, a little bit of rosemary. So we have plenty of punch here. So into my bowl. That's about 4 tablespoons. So I would say be over generous. And then I'm going to add in my chopped chili, red chili, medium hot, sort of sweet tasting, a little bit of garlic. So I'm just slicing it there. And I'm going to crush that to a paste. And that's going to disappear into the oil pretty much. So a few little grains of salt just to help the garlic grip to your chopping board. And then with the tip of your knife, just render it to a paste. That goes in. Lovely. A little bit of lemon. Okay, I don't want to make it overly lemony. I just want all the flavours to be singing the same tune, if you know what I mean. And then some olive oil. This is all about the herbs and the chili and the garlic. I don't want it to be all about the oil, but on the other hand, it needs to be a sort of a drizzling consistency. The smell of the herbs has been enormously enhanced by the addition of the lemon. It's kind of kicked all of those lovely aromas up out of the bowl. Now, I can go ahead and toast my seeds. So I've got a dry pan here, no oil necessary, And these sort of toasted seeds, I'm using pumpkin seeds today. So a dry pan. And why do we toast them? Just to crisp them up a little bit and just to elevate the flavour. While they're toasting there, let's just see what's happening with our vegetables. See lovely steam coming out of the pan because remember our greaseproof paper lid has kept the steam in for our sweating part of the process. So what we're looking for now, see the way it's just starting to break down. That's exactly what we want. That makes a huge difference to the soup. Now we can add the stock, and I'm using chicken stock here. There we go. Before I give it a stir, I'm going to rescue my seeds because these are now ready. Whoops, definitely ready. Out of the pan. You hear them sizzling and crackling as they come out of the pan. They're sort of glorious little things, really. The soup, we've added in our stock. Give it a stir, just to make sure the onions and everything are lifted up from the bottom of the saucepan. We're going to bring it up to a simmer and simmer it until the onion and squash is completely soft and tender. Okay, this looks good. These have been simmering for about 20 minutes or so. Now you could serve it just like that as a butternut squash broth, but I want to make it slightly more sophisticated by pureeing it. Lovely. Looks good at this point. Turn off the heat. That looks pretty good. Perfect. So try and get it into the bowl without dribbling, but we do need a little dribble of our herb and chili oil, and some of it just floats back up to the surface, which is super pretty. A little sprinkle of the crunchy pumpkin seeds, some of those float on the top, and that is nutritious, I think delicious, kind of stylish, a really good bowl of soup. How many times can you sing the praises of a raw ingredient without sounding like a broken record? In the case of Irish lamb, it's worth saying it over and over again to remind ourselves how good it is. This is an unusual recipe in that some of the spices are ground and some are left whole, and you need to buy the best quality curry powder for the recipe, or even better, make your own. Begin by browning off the leg of lamb, and we haven't really done anything in terms of preparation here, except if you ask your butcher to remove the H-bone from the top of the leg of lamb, that makes it much easier for you to carve later on. So just a little bit of olive oil to start off with. Make sure the oil is nice and hot, as you can see it is, before you put the lamb in, and then put it in skin side down to start off with, and the lamb is nice and dry, and that's going to make it brown more easily also. When you're doing this, you'll have to move the lamb around a little bit, sitting it up on its side. You're not going to be able to get every part of the lamb absolutely evenly browned. That doesn't matter at all, because it will pick up more colour in the cooking. And we're braising here. It's a braised leg of lamb. Okay, this is looking great now. So I've got a nice little bit of colour. So it's not deeply coloured like it had been roasted. I can turn the heat off under the pan at this stage. I like to just dab out any of the excess lamb fat, because that's kind of done its job. So just tilt the pan like that, and then I use just a little bit of kitchen towel. You could use a spoon, but just soak those up. So that means that you may not even have to degrease the liquid when the lamb is cooked, because they've given their flavour to the pot at this stage. Then also, to ensure that the flavour of my spices and herbs goes into the meat, at this point, I just slash it like that, just cutting through the fat rather than really cutting into the meat. Okay, for the spices, this is a curious blend, really. I've got a whole chopped garlic, so chopped rather than crushed, so it's not a paste, whole coriander seeds, whole cumin seeds, and then curry powder, which will have cumin and coriander and some fenugreek and turmeric in there, chopped rosemary, thyme leaves, and then very curiously, again, a lot of curiosity going on here, ground cumin and ground coriander, which were roasted before they were ground. So it's an unusual mixture to have whole spices and ground spices. Okay, so mix them together. I find mixing them on the plate works perfectly. The aroma is fantastic, it really is. Okay, so this we just pop on to the surface of the lamb. Some of it's going to fall off. You're going to expect that to happen. That's fine, because that's going to flavour the lovely juices. But already the colours are pretty wonderful, I think. Spread it out. Some falls off, some stays in place. Perfect. A nice pinch of salt, like that. And then our braising liquid. For braising, there's always going to be liquid involved. And I'm using chicken stock. It could be lamb stock. So what I like to do is to make sure not to pour the liquid over the lamb, so some of the spices stay on top, but just pour it into the pot like that. And that's it. Lid on. Lovely. So my oven is preheated. A moderate oven, about 180. Lift this in. And we forget about that for an hour and a half. The lamb has been cooking for about an hour. It needs about another half an hour. And now I'm going to prepare the saffron mash to serve with it. So I'm using Irish potatoes because I think it's a sin to use other than Irish potatoes in Ireland. Anyway, there you go. You can make up your own mind about that. To cook these potatoes, I've put them into some cold water with a good pinch of salt, and we bring them to the boil. 10 minutes after they come to the boil, I strain off all but about 2 centimetres of water, because they can split completely on you in the water and you end up with a saucepan of rather rustic potato soup, which is no good for anything. Great. So a couple of centimetres of water in there, and now they're going to steam for the rest of the cooking. So most of the potatoes at this stage are sitting proud of the water. So if they do split, they're not going to get all soggy and you're not going to lose all your lovely potato. That's really important with these floury potatoes. Okay, my potatoes, I think, are cooked. And the best way to test is to use a little knife or a skewer to make sure they're completely tender. Because if you want super lovely, creamy mashed potatoes, the potatoes must be cooked through. And these are. So at this point, I'm going to pour off all of the water. Great. I'm going to leave the lid on the saucepan because we want to keep the potatoes hot. That's really crucial. And the other thing I need to do immediately, I'm going to put on the milk with a good pinch of saffron. So saffron, which is this wonderful spice, it is the little stigmas of a saffron crocus, and we're going to infuse some of that into the milk. The milk must be boiling when we add it into the mashed potatoes. As I said, it is crucial to deal with the potatoes while they're still hot. How you deal with the potatoes is up to you. I sometimes use a carving fork like that, and then just peel off the skins. If you find the carving fork too difficult, you could hold them in a tea towel. So keep peeling. And the other thing you'll note is that I'm dropping the potatoes into a mouli, an old-fashioned, what's called a mouli legume or a vegetable mouli. And I find it fantastic to give a particular lovely, creamy consistency. It's a little bit there, just like that. So there's nothing to be gained by wasting those. So just push those little bits in. Right, I'm going to just stir in the saffron, which is floating on the surface like that. Right, now, start to press this through. You don't have to do this. If you don't have a mouli, just put them into a bowl and beat them with a wooden spoon, or use an old-fashioned potato masher, what your mother or your grandmother would have used as well. It all goes through beautifully, and you get like potato rice like that. Now scrape every last little bit off, so as not to lose any, and then straight away our flavourings. So a little of our saffron milk, put in less than you think you need, because remember, you're not trying to make soup here, you're trying to make mash. So just pour some of that in. Butter, add in some butter. I am using butter. I'm going to make it extra rich and extra delicious. Start mixing. I'm just going to add the egg in like that and beat quickly, just to blend that in. And there's a point at this stage where you're looking and thinking, oh my God, have I made a mess of it? No, I haven't, because I still have plenty of dried potato to just pull in like that. I think that's perfect, just soft and creamy. And that is the mashed potato, which I can now transfer to a serving dish. Now the lamb, I'm sure, is cooked. Great, so I'm going to put the potatoes in just to keep warm. So the oven set with the steam function will create a really lovely atmosphere for those. Now let's see what's happening in here. Most of your work is done at this stage. Take the lid off. Yeah, that looks really great. We have the delicious lamb juices with virtually no fat, almost fat-free at this point actually, and then the lovely crust on the surface of the lamb. If you want at this stage, you just push a little of that loose crust down into the juices. Then I'm going to transfer that. Let's just pop that on there. Now the liquid, at this point, taste it. If it tastes a little bit thin in flavour, I would put the liquid back on the sauce, on the heat, and maybe reduce it a little bit to concentrate the flavour, but quite often it's just delicious as it is. And it is delicious as it is. It does need a grain of salt, and that should make that pretty much perfect. So, pop these in here. Plenty of delicious juices. So some lemon wedges, a big bunch of this lovely coriander with these skinny little tender stalks, really delicious with this. And then the gravy, most of it served separately, a couple spoonfuls of that just over the top of it. And when you're carving lamb, the most important thing to remember is that generally speaking, with your knife and fork, you're going to be going south with your knife. So you'd carve into the lamb, just cutting straight down like that onto the bone. And that would be really, really delicious. Add the saffron potatoes to go with that. And you have everything ready for a delicious, mildly spiced leg of lamb. Lovely gravy, lemon and coriander to go with it, and the rich, luscious saffron potatoes. It's a very good combination of flavours. I'm sure everyone is familiar with Oreos, which is apparently the best-selling cookie in America. Maybe I'm being a little cheeky here calling these biscuits lime Oreos, but they certainly look like them, and most importantly, they taste great. Whether you're eating these in the time-honoured way with a glass of chilled milk, or with the yogurt and banana ice that I'm going to make to serve with them, they're a lovely thing. The biscuit dough is very simple here. Measure out your ingredients properly, and then the ingredients just go into a bowl and are mixed by hand or by machine, one after the other. So I've got my butter ready, and just cream the butter a little bit first just to get it going. Then we add in our sugar, some castor sugar, and just a little oil, and that's a little sunflower oil. And we're going to beat it again. Because the butter was at room temperature, it becomes lovely and light and fluffy like that. We're going to add in an egg, just to enrich the mixture somewhat. That's just one egg. A little vanilla extract to flavour. Lovely. Mix that in. That's kind of looking like a batter at this stage. So 1 teaspoon of baking powder going in with the flour. And I like to sieve in my dry ingredients. And just to be sure, nothing unscheduled is going in there. The cocoa and the little bit of baking powder that we added in just causes the biscuits to rise a little bit, and that makes them sort of taste somewhat lighter. Then, with a little stirring, it would come together into a really nice dough. Great. So just keep mixing. So just beat it well like that. That's perfect. No longer looking streaky, and you can see it's one of those mixtures that's stiff enough that the wooden spoon will actually stand up straight. Now I'm going to spread it onto some parchment paper. And then flatten it down like that. Fold that. So then this into the fridge for a minimum of 30 minutes. And here is one that I've had chilling for 30 minutes and looks pretty similar, but just it's firmer like that. I usually use a little bit of flour on my work surface. Just start off rolling half of it. You can cut it or tear it apart like that. So I'm just going to just press this, knead it just a little bit. And a rolling pin. You can see it's slipping and sliding a little bit on me, but that's okay. As it gets thinner, it will do that less. So keep rolling. Perfect. Then take your cutter, which is just here beside me, and then just stamp out the biscuits, and sometimes they lift up like that, which is absolutely heaven, and sometimes they don't. So we'll keep going. So don't have them so close together that they stick together in the cooking. Now at this stage, can go straight into our oven to cook at 180 for about 10 minutes. So the biscuits are cooked, so about 8 to 10 minutes, and nothing dramatic changes in terms of their appearance. And I usually allow them to sit there and cool on the tray. And as they cool, they firm up and become completely easy to handle. So while that's happening, I've got a little icing sugar, to which I'm going to add some natural unsweetened yogurt. I like to use full fat yogurt for this. Beautiful, thick, rich yogurt. It goes in there, 2 bananas. I'm just going to whiz everything up. This could not be easier. So the sugar, the yogurt, the bananas, and some lime zest. Okay, that's everything in there. And then just puree it. Now, if you don't have one of these, you could puree it with a hand-held masher, like your potato masher. Okay, so it becomes quite liquidy, and that's slightly alarming in a way, but don't worry, that's exactly what happens, and everything is still perfect. So all you do is decant that into a freezer-proof container and freeze it. And as soon as it's set and frozen, you're ready to go. So the filling for the biscuits, I'm just going to make a little buttercream filling. So I got some butter in here in a bowl at room temperature, and I'll just beat that a moment. I'm going to add in some icing sugar, and then the zest of 1 lime and the juice of 1 lime. So continuing on here with our lime theme. And don't forget the juice, because I want the juice of the lime to cut through the sweetness. Lovely. Just mix all of that together. Give it a good beat. Okay, so I'm going to fill this into a piping bag. If you didn't have a piping bag, you could just, spoon the mixture, and that will work very well. Now, you may decide you want to pop one into your mouth straight away before you pop it into a serving dish. Then just pipe a little of the mixture, just like that. Just sandwich them together. And like in all good recipes, in this case, there's 1 biscuit left. Clearly 1 biscuit is never going to make a sandwich, but that can become the cook's taste. Just pile them up. Some more lime. And they, of course, would be lovely just like that. But if you want to go the whole hog, serve them with a little of the yogurt, lime, and banana ice. So a little scoop like that. One of those popped up beside it. Refreshing, chilling, delicious, zesty, yummy.
Get closer to your cooking with Neff Slide and Hide, proud sponsor of How to Cook Well with Rory O'Connell.